Hi, this is Leo. I'm out here. It's July 31st, 2017. And I'm making this video to share some of my thoughts as to the type and direction in which our church ought to be heading into the future, especially through the 21st century. We're living in the most unprecedented time in the history of the church, and it's definitely the most interesting era in church history. Most interesting era of church history. We're definitely called to a higher standard of calling. We need to remove so much dross from our churches, so much unnecessary baggage, and a lot of compromising stances and lifestyles. We could certainly do away with so much the junk that is going around these days, like this, somewhat like the severity of the gospel message, right? The hardness of the gospel message has been exchanged for like a very lovey-dovey, very soft, very new age type of like a motivational wisdom that we see proliferating in today's evangelical mega churches. Like one that is in a watered down version of the gospel. Few examples that come to mind are Rick Warren's Purpose-Driven Church, or Joel Osteen type, and one of the symptoms of the greater problems that we have in churches today is like emerging church, like Dan Kimball or Brian McLaren, to name just a few. I mean, I even hate to mention having to mention their names, but this is a symptom of a greater problem in the churches today, especially in the evangelical churches. And one of the sickness that is going around today is that while we're compromising, is that we become so, especially the Western culture has become very self-indulgent, narcissistic, right, hedonistic, and materialistic. Right, this is like a hyper-consumerist era that the church has entered into. This is like the era of the large corporations, such as Zondervan Publishing. Zondervan Publishing cares more about profits and making money than about putting out than promulgating some quality spiritual messages that the church is in dire need today. And because of these things, the church has become like a corporation. It's become what the church was during the Middle Ages, right? A Christendom. Today's Christendom are these big large corporations, these big large mega churches that, as a matter of fact, they even have some churches even have their own police forces, if you can believe it. Just recently, in the state of Alabama, it was granted, one of the mega churches was granted its own police force, and it was a bipartisan decision. So, pretty unanimous, bipartisan decision. The church needed its own police force, and it got it. Why? How? It could afford it. It had money. It had power. It had wealth, resources. So, what goes around comes around, basically. And this is not the sort of a kingdom that was originally envisioned by Jesus Christ, and the message that Jesus Christ had attempted to convey. This is not the faith that was once for all delivered to the saints. The simplicity of the gospel, the simplicity of our devotion in Jesus Christ has been robbed from us, all because of this, human lust for gain, for materialism, for human vanities. I mean, a lot of these things play upon our vanities, and it's I lay no blame. I'm not saying it's such and such fault or it's our fault or somebody's fault. It's just in our nature to be greedy, to be hedonistic, to be sensuous, because we're sensible creatures. We crave for things that are appealing to the senses, and that's why we have things like emerging church movement and Brian McLaren, and we have Joel Osteen's highly watered down dose of diet Christianity, and his which is not a gospel at all. It's more like a motivational wisdom, and that stuff sells. That stuff, unfortunately and deplorably sells. So we're called today to be with the higher standards. We need discipline. We need to bring back certain forms of austerity, certain forms of asceticism. We need to emphasize that the local church isn't just a place for gathering, isn't just a lovey-dovey atmosphere of massaging our egos. No, it's a place for us to fellowship, as it's written in 1 John, so that we may have fellowship with one another, gunonia. And it is a place to worship God. It is a place when we gather together, it is to partake of the Lord's Supper, dipnon kuriake, in 1 Corinthians. When we gather together, it's to partake of the Lord's Supper. It is to worship God with all our hearts, with all our might, with all our soul, with all our strength. And it is to seek the faces of the saints. And the purpose of the church is that it should be disciplined, it should be focused, it should be cohesive, and the local church should be given a lot of emphasis. And using the use of technologies, the use of modern forms of amenities, those are definitely appropriate. Some of the churches, especially the high churches, they've become somewhat very, very quaint and not very appealing to today's youngsters. And not that we should pander to them, but that we can certainly modernize it in so many different ways aesthetically, not by bringing in all kinds of weird stuff, but making a place where the Word of God is honored, where there's a lot of discipline, a lot of focus, and so that the hearts may be in it entirely. That we're there not to tickle our ears or to massage our egos, but to learn and to be transformed by the renewing of our minds, to walk in the newness of life, of our Christian life. To the place where we can to grow together, to a place where we can encourage it together, to a place where we can learn to live the gospel lives in this world, how to live the gospel message, that the kingdom that Jesus Christ ushered in is a kingdom not of this world, and how we're to live that kingdom life, that spiritual life, right? As Paul talks about, the spiritual life. And this can only be done through a certain degree of asceticism, certain degree of focus, clarity of mind, concentrated calm, right? Certain concentration, certain cohesiveness. And I haven't become specific, of course. I'm being extremely general here, and in the subsequent videos I'll be delving more into sort of a specific what we can use specifically to alleviate some of our problems, some of our spiritual malaise, so to speak. And thanks for tuning in, and this is Leo, and today's July 31st, 2017, and I bid you all God bless, and keep tuning in.